what is the legal framework around, such kind of harassment or violence, whether it's domestic or it's sexual harassment?
Okay, so we have, so in Wales, it might be useful to give a little bit of an outline of how we sit in terms of jurisdiction. So we have a Welsh government that we call the Senedd, and they are responsible for certain areas of government that we call devolved areas. That includes the majority of public services. So when we think for us about social services, education, health, that all sits within the responsibility of Welsh government, but criminal justice sits with UK government. So it's in England and Wales. So in terms of the legalities of dealing with offending, that would sit within the UK laws. So for that, we have sexual offences laws, we have domestic abuse offences, we are pushing now around stalking, harassment, coercive control. We are doing an amount of work around improving investigations for rape and serious sexual offences. That's been a huge piece of work being undertaken across all police forces. But we also have in Wales the Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse, Sexual Violence Act, of which my role sits. So that provides a duty to, I suppose, keep it as brief as possible, but please ask me more about it if you feel it's relevant. That provides the duty on the public services that I outlined just now to prevent violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence, but also to support and protect those that have those experiences. So within that means that we have a national strategy. So our strategy now is from 2022 to 2026. So within that, there are areas of priority, which include around, for example, healthy relationships or tackling perpetration, making sure that we have the services we need, but also that we have, there's a duty on our local areas. So we have local authority areas. They also have to have a strategy. So they should be understanding their local area needs and responding to it. And the reason why this is so important is that we know that, and I believe the case, it's the case across the world. Criminal justice does not serve victims and survivors of violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence. We need to have the other responses because they're the ones that help people cope and recover. So for us, we know that many victims and survivors will be accessing health services. They might not immediately disclose that they are getting those services, the reason why they need those services, but we know that they will be there as a cause and consequence of the abuse they've experienced. So within our legislation, we have something called Ask and Act, and public services should have so frontline workers who are in that place where somebody is likely to be presenting with needs around this area. They should be asking, is there something behind it? And then there should be support for that individual around the abuse that they either have experienced in the past or they are experiencing now. And for me, that's really fundamental, is that we have those pathways for support. We also have other legislation that further reinforces that in Wales. So we have a Social Services and Wellbeing Act. That is also really important because that's also talking about the care and support needs of people. And we also have a Future Generations Act. So for example, in that talks about the well-being of future generations. We know that many people will turn to substances as a result of child sexual abuse, being within domestic abuse settings. So there is a duty on those designing those services to do something to prevent that from happening in the first place. So for us, there's a full suite of things that's on public services. But like I say, for criminal justice, we are reliant on that being decided by Westminster and cascading, and being out in all our police forces.